The Gold Cup is over, but that doesn't mean the content has to stop. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my Gold Cup best 11 from the entire tournament. I am going with a 3-4-3 formation. We're going to go through this position by position. I have some that I think are very clear cut. Others have a couple honorable mentions. You guys let me know your best 11 down below in the comments, and if you guys like videos about Concacaf and the Gold Cup, because this will not be the final Gold Cup video here on the channel, make sure you are subscribed. And of course, if I have any inclusions that y'all disagree with, that you think are lacking ball knowledge in a serious manner, let me know why down below. At the goalkeeper position, this one is very close. Now, it was Mexico's Luis Malagon who won the Best Goalkeeper award officially, according to Concacaf, but I disagree. Malagon is not the best keeper of the tournament. For me, it's between three different names. Mosquera with Panama, Mengíbar with Honduras, and Keylor Navas with Costa Rica. This one is very interesting because I feel like the Keylor Navas argument is he had a very good game against Mexico, right? He had like a freakish save against Raul Jimenez that made all the highlights, and I think he was solid in that match. And I also think he was solid against the United States in the quarterfinals and including the penalty shootout. But in the other group stage games against Dominican Republic and Suriname, I think he was okay. I don't think it was a bad performance, but it wasn't anything special. And unfortunately for him, Costa Rica go out in the quarterfinals, so we only have 4 games to look at. Mengíbar is a very interesting case because in the group stage, including the 6-0 beatdown by Canada, he was terrible. He was a little better against El Salvador, and then he had the horrible error against Curacao. But then in the knockouts against Panama, he was playing out of his skin, the best game I've ever seen from him, including in the penalty shootout. And then in Mexico, he was also really, really good. So I think he deserves a mention. Yeah, he conceded a lot of goals, but he also saved a ton. And Honduras do not make the semifinal without him. But my winner is going to be Orlando Mosquera from Panama. Mosquera only played 4 games, similar to Keylor Navas, but I think he had the best 4 matches of any goalkeeper in the tournament. Even against Guatemala and Jamaica, he was making ridiculous saves. I would even say in every single game, he had at least one crucial save. So while like Mengíbar has like really high highs against Panama, ironically, and really low lows, and Navas was kind of like okay in the group stage and then turned it up in the knockouts, I think Mosquera was great in every single match. Every single match, this guy was good. Also saved the penalty in the penalty shootout. I mean, it's not his fault that the Panamanians can't finish. So for me, I was the most impressed with Mosquera. He's going to be my number 1. Now I'm going with the back 3, and there's one center back that is a complete layup, and that is Chris Richards. If there is one defensive inclusion in the Gold Cup best 11 that everybody, haters included, must accept, it's Chris Richards being here. In fact, I would argue that if the United States would have won the Gold Cup, he should have been the MVP of the tournament, not Malik Tillman. I'm not even sure what I have to say here. He had the game-winning goal against Saudi Arabia. He had a goal in the final, for God's sake. He was really good in the Gold Cup final. I thought clearly the best player for the United States in that game, and really didn't put too many feet wrong the entire tournament. And I think if you would have removed him from that back line, I kind of fear for what would have happened to the United States. I don't think they make the final. Now, the second center back is a bit interesting one. I'm going to go through the nominees: Johan Vazquez, Cesar Montes, Daniel Maldonado, and Nicolas Samajoa. Now, Daniel Maldonado is typically the captain for Honduras, but he didn't play in the first game. And what happened in the first game for Honduras this Gold Cup? Yeah, that was the 6-0 defeat. I don't know who the CBs were in that match, but we probably should never see them again. In comes Maldonado, and actually defensively, Honduras is quite good ever since. Then we have Cesar Montes, who I feel like was okay in the group stage, but he had an amazing final. But let's be honest, if he didn't score 3 goals in this Gold Cup, I don't think anybody would be making the argument he should be in the best 11, though it was a good tournament. Samajoa, I think, was one of the defenders I was the most pleased with this tournament because I wasn't very familiar with him before this. I looked on transfer marks, and my man is without a club, so somebody might want to sign this guy ASAP. I think Pinto is another good center back for Guatemala, but Samajoa, I felt, is a little bit more versatile, and I think there were a couple more instances when Guatemala was put on the back foot where he individually stepped up and made a slide tackle or a great block. And then we have Johan Vazquez, who is just a stud. And I think I am going to go with Johan Vazquez next to Chris Richards. I'm sorry, I would love to go Samajoa. I think Samajoa has the second best argument of all the center backs outside of Johan to partner with Chris Richards. But Johan is just too good. He was good in the final. He was good in the knockouts. He's good at everything. It's just, I don't know what to say. I know it's a little boring. I'm going with an American and a Mexican in the CBs, but I have to. Y'all know I'm a hipster. I would love to throw a Curaçaoan in here, but I just can't. But somebody I can nominate is my third defender, who I actually am going to go with the fullback here, and that is Aaron Herrera from Guatemala. This guy had such a good tournament. He is so important to Guatemala as a two-way fullback. Defensively, he's actually quite good, but offensively, he was second on the team in chance creation. I don't know if he had an assist. Maybe he had one in this tournament, but regardless, he gives Guatemala that wide threat on the right side of the field. For me, it was between him and Amir Murillo from Panama, and hear me out. You guys know I'm probably the biggest Murillo simp on the internet. I absolutely love this guy. He's one of my favorite players in Concacaf. But the fact is, he did not play one of the group stage games against Jamaica, and in the knockout game against Honduras, he didn't take a penalty kick, which really bothers me because you're one of the senior players on the team. You're also clearly the best player on the team, and I didn't like the fact that he's not stepping up to take one. Meanwhile, you got Fidel Escobar and Eric Davis checks in the game and takes one. It felt wrong to me. And this hurts me because Murillo was genuinely on pace to be the player of the tournament after the group stage. Not just Panama's best player, no, like he should have been the MVP. But guess what? Panama couldn't get it done against Honduras. They folded late. Murillo wasn't particularly good in that game. Even he had an opportunity to kill the game late, but his shot is too close to Menjivar. He doesn't really defend that well, and so I'm going to go with Herrera. I think Herrera's dealing with way less firepower around him, and I think he still stood out. Also, special shout out to Joseph Rosales from Honduras. I thought that he, much like most of the Honduran players, were better as the tournament went on, especially in the knockouts. Really, really good game against Panama, and a good game against Curacao as well, but just not enough for me. Moving on to the midfield. At my left mid, I'm gonna have to bend the rules a bit here. I'm going with Marcel Ruiz from Mexico. He's going to finish this Gold Cup campaign with just one assist, but if you actually watch how Mexico plays, you know that he deserves more than that. Probably should have had a goal against Honduras in the semis too, but it's a great save from Menjivar. And that one assist that he did get was in the Gold Cup final. This is a guy with very little experience for the Mexican national team, and he became part of a Mexican midfield, whether it was Eric Lira, whether it was Edson Alvarez, Gilberto Mora, that was really dominant. And I think it's really telling that as the tournament ends, I have not really seen a single negative thing said about this guy's performance. And being a midfielder for Mexico is not an easy gig. Like, you will get ripped to shreds if you're not good, just ask Luis Romo or Charlie Rodriguez. And I think Marcel Ruiz handled everything amazing. Good defensively, good creativity. Probably needs to work on his finishing a bit more, but hey, for the sake of this Gold Cup, he was one of the best midfielders. Moving on to my first center mid, I'm going with Gervin Arriaga from Honduras. Firstly, because I have to put a Honduran in here, and I think Arriaga is one of the most slept on ballers in CONCACAF. He was so freaking good in the Panama game in the quarterfinals. It actually made my stomach hurt a little bit. He finishes the Gold Cup with just one goal involvement. It was an assist in the Curacao game, but that's not really his bag. What is his bag is just being a freaking demon in the middle of the park. Arriaga's like 6'3". Sometimes he looks like Kevin Durant with that slim Reaper body type, just slide tackling in the middle of the pitch. I also think he's one of the few Hondurans who wasn't that bad in the 6-0 defeat to Canada. Scored his penalty against Panama. Probably should have scored from open play if I think Andrade didn't clear the ball off the line. He's a good player. Moving on to my other center mid. This one is one of the layups, and that's Edson Alvarez. I mean, he's the MVP of the Gold Cup, and I think it was deserved. He was the MVP of the final. He scored the game-winning goal in the final. He finishes on 2 goals overall in this tournament. Set piece monster. Really, he should have had 3, but one deflected off of Cesar Montes, so Montes got credit for the goal, but it was really Edson. And I think this was the best string of games in the midfield where we've seen him just really back at his best. And I think that's 50% due to Edson, but also due to Marcel Ruiz, which is why I had to include him in here as well. Edson is good when he doesn't have to do everything by himself, and it seems like we've found that combination with the Mexican national team. And if you look at his defensive numbers, he is pretty much the top performer in every single category that you could look at. Even some categories offensively, like touches and passes and pass accuracy. So yeah, Edson just killed it this tournament. At my right mid, I'm going with Malik Tillman from the U.S. men's national team. I think this is another layup. Special shout out to Nico Segura from Canada, but he kind of bounced around every position. Malik Tillman was the best offensive player for the USA, and that is not debatable. I know he finishes with a very close GA to Diego Luna, but if you're talking about impact on the game, I think Tillman was clear. Tillman also had a much better final than Diego Luna. He finishes the Gold Cup on 2 goals, 3 assists, 2 of those assists coming in the knockouts. And if there was an MVP for the United States outside of Chris Richards, I think it's Malik Tillman, hands down. Diego Luna probably gets the fan favorite, probably gets the Hustler Award, but I think Malik Tillman finally showed his quality and what he can do for the U.S. men's national team. And I'm going to award him an extra bonus point for that because I feel like him and Johnny Cardoso were the 2 guys where all USA fans were like, that's cool that you're good in Europe, but what about for us, bro? Now, Cardoso ain't seen that man since the Switzerland game, but Malik Tillman actually stepped up. Not only was he the most creative player of the United States, but he also led the USA in interceptions and tackles. Have y'all seen the LeBron James no help meme? That was basically Malik Tillman. At the right wing position, this one is extremely close for me, and it's only between two names: Tajon Buchanan of Canada and Oscar Santis of Guatemala. I think the Tajon argument is that he was, in my opinion, the best, or I would say the most efficient Canadian offensive player throughout the Gold Cup. I think Jonathan David was close, but I would say Tajon Buchanan probably caused the opposition a bit more problems from open play. Also defensively, like, this guy really hustles and he loves to defend too, which I love when I see a winger willing to track back. It brings a smile to my face. He finishes the Gold Cup with 3 goals and just 5 shots, which is not a bad conversion rate. And I think he really dug deep and tried hard to get Canada over the line against Guatemala in the quarterfinals, but it just wasn't enough. The whole team was gassed, including Tajon. And honestly, it's a shame that he couldn't hold on for penalties, because I think he deserved to be one of the penalty takers in that game. So overall for Tajon, I think it was a really good redemption campaign, because this is a guy who hasn't really seen much joy at the club level for a while. Honestly, for Canada, he had lost his spot too. And so similar to Malik Tillman, I think he came in and kind of shushed some of the doubters. Now, the Oscar Santis argument is that, namely, Guatemala beat Canada, and they were the underdogs in that game, so you could give them a little tick there. Second, I think you look at the players around Oscar Santis for Guatemala. They're obviously less talented than the Canadians, but I think his output was almost the same. He finishes on 1 goal, 1 assist for a Guatemala side, and Oscar Santis led Guatemala in chances created. I think he had 12 in the tournament. The next best player was Aaron Herrera, who was also my best 11 with 7. And very similar to Tajon Buchanan, I think that Oscar Santis was the best attacking player for Guatemala. Not to say that Ruben didn't ball out, not to say that Escobar doesn't look like a young stud, but if we're talking about the one guy who had the most positive impact for Guatemala that made them scary, it was Santis. For the sake of this video and for my editor, I'm just going to say Oscar Santis because Guatemala got the tiebreaker in winning the quarterfinal game. But if you're going Tajon, I don't blame you. If you're going somebody like Leon Bailey, then we got problems. Next up, we have the striker position, and I think this is another layup. Hopefully, there's not too much debate down below. It's Raul Jimenez, best striker of the tournament, goals in the semifinal and the final, 3 goals overall. He also has an unofficial assist to Vega in the quarterfinals. It was unofficial because it's a double shot from Alexis Vega, but he creates the chance. He's a spiritual leader of the team. It's so obvious how much better Mexico is because of Raul Jimenez, and nobody else can fill those shoes, Santi Jimenez included. I think this is a layup inclusion. And finally, at the left wing position, I am going to go with Ismael Diaz from Panama. I think he was Panama's best offensive player. He finishes as the Gold Cup top goal scorer with 6 goals, and only 2 of those were penalties. The other 4 goals, 2 of them were actually very impressive goals, including his freaking borderline goal of the tournament solo goal against Jamaica in the final group stage game. Ismael Diaz simply feasts at the Gold Cup, man. He loves this tournament more than Jesus Ferreira loves playing teams from the Caribbean. I don't know why Panama kind of phased this guy out. I feel like he needs to be included in Panama's best 11. I don't see an argument for another left winger over this guy. Hopefully that was due to an injury. I honestly don't know the background information on that, but hopefully Christensen saw my boy cook again, back-to-back tournaments. Remember, he had 4 goals in 1 game in the last Gold Cup, and he's saying, all right, I got to fit Ismael in somehow, because he does. And lastly, I didn't actually prepare for this, but I'm thinking manager. I'm going to maintain that there's only 3 managers who should be nominated, and that's Javier Aguirre with Mexico, Luis Fernando Tena with Guatemala, and Rueda from Honduras. I'm going to say Rueda's 3rd just because the group stage was a little shaky. I'm going to actually go Javier Aguirre 2nd, and I'm going to go Luis Fernando Tena as number 1. I think what he was able to do with Guatemala, he certainly punched above his weight more than Aguirre punched up with Mexico, because he didn't really punch up. I mean, the expectation was win, and he did, and I'm not trying to downcredit that. That's really difficult to do. It's hard to win as the favorite, but I also think Guatemala were fun to watch. These were exciting games. This was not just park the bus FC and pray for pens. Like, no, the Guatemalans actually went out there to ball. But again, if you go Javier Aguirre, I got no issue with that whatsoever. It was a very good tournament from him as well, and honestly, honestly, if he didn't start Jorge Sanchez in the final, I probably would be going with him too. But that's just because I'm a bit of a hater. And that is the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I will recap my list right here again. The 3-4-3 formation. Mosquera in goal, Johan Vasquez, Chris Richards, Aaron Herrera as my defenders. I've gone with Marcel Ruiz, Edson, Kervin Arriaga, and Malik Tillman as my 4 midfielders. And in my front 3, I'm going with Ismael Diaz, Raul Jimenez, and Oscar Santis. And Luis Fernando Tena is my manager of the tournament. You guys let me know what you think down below in the comments. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. Remember, more Gold Cup content dropping on the channel soon. Hit subscribe for that. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.